A lawyer, a best-selling author, a serious entrepreneur, a politician, but for the sake of this human interest piece, she's a voting rights activist. And chances are that if you're happy that Biden-Harris won the 2020 elections, you have her to thank. And how did she make such a big impact in the 2020 presidential elections? And will she have the same impact in the January 5th runoffs? This is The Full Scope on Stacey Abrams. And the tweet reads, update, more than 700,000 Georgians have already cast their ballot for the January 5th runoff. That tweet was posted at 1:05 p.m. on December 16th of 2020. How is it possible that so many people have turned out to vote for 2 Senate seats in record numbers just 3 weeks before the election deadline? How did a state like Georgia, who is well known for its conservative views and the lesser known voter suppression in low income and minority communities, vote Democratic for the 2020 presidential election? And better yet, and will they have another Democratic victory on the 2 Senate seats left in Georgia? Well, the answer to that question is Stacey Abrams. Who is Stacey Abrams? Well, she was born in Wisconsin. She was later raised in Gulfport, Mississippi, where she stayed there till her high school years, and her parents decided to move to Atlanta, Georgia to pursue higher education at Emory University. This is where Stacey Abrams really dipped her feet into the political realm. At 17 years old, she decided to go for an internship, and she got it. She became a typist for a congressional campaign. At just 17 years old, the level of maturity that Stacey had to command. At 17, where most of us are looking to score our first date or our first summer job, she was already in the political field. She was so good at typing and editing all these speeches that she was later given the job of being a speechwriter for these congressional campaigns at 17 years old. Incredible. And at just 17 years old, Stacey laid out this foundation for her political career for years to come. After graduating valedictorian from Avondale High School, she decided to attend Spelman College, where she got her BA in political studies, sociology, and economics. After Spelman, she attended University of Texas, where she got her master's in public affairs. And then after that, she attended Yale Law School to get her law degree. In 2002, at the age of 29, she was appointed the deputy city attorney for the city of Atlanta, Georgia. And by 2006, she ran for the 89th District House of Representatives of Georgia. She won by 51% of the votes. By 2018, Stacey Abrams decided to run for the governor of Georgia, and this is where things start getting a little sticky, and this is where her passion for voters' rights, the activism behind it, began. So it's 2018, and Stacey is the Democratic nominee for governor. At the same time, you have your Republican nominee, and that is Brian Kemp. Now, Brian Kemp is no stranger to politics. At this point, when he decided to run for governor, he was already the Secretary of the State of Georgia. And at the same time, he was in charge of all the elections and the registry for the elections. You would think that's no conflict of interest, right? Somebody who's running for an election is in charge of the election registrations. So throughout the entire campaign, Brian Kemp's office is being investigated for voter registration. And they realized that between 2012 and 2018, 1.4 million registered votes disappeared from the system. They were canceled completely, which when you think about it, these are votes that went to a couple of those governor elections, those midterm elections, and one of them was at least in the presidential election of 2016, where President Trump won. So it's 2017, and this investigation to Brian Kemp's and his office and his administration is really, really on its way. And they realized that just in 2017, in a matter of 24 hours, 500,000 votes were canceled from the voters registration list. They just completely disappeared from the system. So Brian Kemp's office came out with an excuse or with a rebuttal saying that the reason they do these cleanups in the system is to prevent voter fraud. But then as this investigation keeps going, they realize that out of the 500,000 votes, over 300,000 people were still living in the same place that they were registered years before. So that pretty much meant that a lot of people went to vote for president in 2016, or people went in to vote for the midterms in 2018, and they realized when they got to the voting polls that they were not registered to vote, unbeknownst to them. So the people that registered did nothing wrong. So Brian Kemp's office at this moment, still in 2020, is being investigated for these disappearing voter registrations in the state of Georgia. Now things get a little bit trickier. Let's move on to 2018. This is where the actual midterm elections take place, where people vote for the governor of the state. It is the beginning of October of 2018, and Brian Kemp's office suddenly they canceled another 54,000 votes. And the midterm elections happen, and Stacey Abrams loses against Brian Kemp with a margin of 55,000 votes. That is it. Now, while this investigation keeps going, they realize that 75% of these 54,000 registered votes in October, just weeks before the election, that 75% were from minority communities and low-income communities. And subsequently, Stacey Abrams lost the race to become governor of the state of Georgia. But this is exactly what inspired her to start fighting for the voters' rights. Within the last 2 years, Stacey Abrams has really dedicated her life into fighting for voters' rights. She came up with a nonprofit organization, which is called the Fair Fight Action, which is to fight for a free and fair election. She has really been the driving key force in turning Georgia into a blue state. Within the last 2 years, just by herself and her nonprofit, they have managed to get 800,000 new registered voters in the state of Georgia. And most of these voters were people that have been oppressed through many elections, through many decades with voting, by closing either the polling sites or just redirecting it and making it so hard for all these people to go out and vote that they just give up. So she has really put her all into making sure that everybody has the rights and the freedom of their vote. And it is safe to say that Stacey Abrams' lobbying and activism for a fair and free election has been the driving force and the change of the nation for the next 4 years. She might have single-handedly changed the direction of this nation by having Georgia turn into a blue state. And in the words of Stacey Abrams, the only way to win is to try. Stay safe.